All right, 7 o'clock and we're on time. Hi folks, thanks for coming. Paul W1SCX, President of the Mohawk Amateur Radio Club. And got a nice agenda tonight with some really cool things going on. Special guest, Tom, 81GF, is going to talk about the MSJ analyzer. And we're going to go over the heat kit contest. So before we get started, round of introductions. Kevin?
Kevin, N1ERS, Gardner.
Bill?
Bill, N1UZ, Gardner.
Pete, A6APO, Gardner.
Ron, KC1BAJ, Gardner.
Alan, K1UCY, Gardner.
Ray, KC1HD, Acronym.
All right.
Welcome.
Tom, AB1GF, Fitchburg.
He does. Doesn't that just give me a nice warm fuzzy feeling?
Okay. All right, first item on the agenda. Field day plans. Mr. Bill,
Yeah.
you have the podium.
Do we have to ask him to leave?
We've sworn him to secrecy and he's signed a non-disclosure
Okay,
agreement.
he would remember that if we met here in Pittsburgh anyhow, so that's okay.
Okay, there you go. Come on up so people can see
Man, I
you
gotta
on the
pass these
video.
out first.
Just go give him a hand up.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Let's start off with my drawing that is far from good. That's okay.
Got that right.
All right, so anyhow, this is kind of an aggressive plan as compared to other years, okay? All the other years have always worked out good. But Paul and I decided to perhaps expand it just a little bit. By the ARRL rules, we are allowed up to 300-meter diameter. And we're not taking advantage of it. We're just clumped under the trees, and we got a couple of wires here and a couple of wires there. So we decided to go a little step further. And you have to excuse my drawing, and I'm not good at this. Can you see that? Okay. The outer yellow ring right here is your 300-meter diameter. The heavy green line, let me turn it this way, is the street itself, Norcross Hill Road. It does have a little bend as we get into the garage and shoots up in this direction again, which is southwest. I always thought southwest was over this way someplace until I got on Google Earth and found out it wasn't. So all these squiggly lines that you see here, that's my representation of trees. Not very good, but that's okay. There's a row of trees over here and across the street in the other field. And up here, up the street, there's another row of trees that cut across the top of the field that is across the street. And these squiggly lines here cut right through the circle. But they are quite accurate as far as Google Earth is concerned. So what we kind of are thinking about doing is having 6 stations total, of which only 3 can be operated at any given time. That is like the optimal plan of attack, okay? It ain't gonna happen that way, because it never does. But the actual plan that I had in mind was to have 6 stations, and station number 1 in the middle of the page would be in the trailer. It would be Dave's radio, the 7300. It would go through, and that would be strictly CW radio. Now, when I say things fall apart, if Matt doesn't show up, I don't know what we're going to do for CW. So that's a problem. Matt has moved to South Hadley, Mass. I have talked to him. If he's going to be in the country, he will show up. But as you probably all know, he has this job that he's got to go to.
He acknowledged my invitation to the mountain.
What's that?
He acknowledged my invitation to the mountain.
I'm sure he did, and we get some backups. Don't worry about
Okay.
it. So anyhow, if Matt shows up, we're golden. Okay, if he's in the country. But as you know, he works in India quite a bit. So that would be operator B, and that would be a steady job for Matt and whoever else could do CW on that radio. The other steady job is station number 2, and that would be an end-fed antenna that I have at home. I've had it up many times. It's a really good working antenna, and that would need a bandpass filter, which the club has. Also, Matt's station would have a bandpass filter also. We would be using the radio from the Westminster EOC and the end-fed antenna, and that station would be located across the street, and that would be from the rock wall, which is over here. There's another house in here someplace, and that antenna would be heading straight southwest, okay? And the operating facility would be right down here, and all we'd have to do is drop coax from the tree into the radio. That would be a really good setup. We've also made provisions for another station across the street, and that would be a PSK station. Kevin would supply that with his ICOM 7300, and that could go into the Westminster Fire Department's vertical antenna, all-band vertical antenna, which last year performed very, very well on RIDI, but I know it didn't perform very well on sideband because the fire department radio was turned all the way down on the ALC and the mic gain, so nobody really made any contacts at all on sideband. And that's one of my intentions of doing this on purpose, okay? I want dedicated radios, dedicated antennas, dedicated mode. So don't take the RIDI station and start operating on sideband. A totally different setup, and you're not gonna get out, okay? Unless you make all the different adjustments in the radio itself. It's a radio that really nobody knows. I don't know it that well either. And it just takes too damn long to make all these changes. And then another station, another operator comes in and tries to do RIDI, and nothing's working. Nothing, because you just gotta go back to all the old settings, and that takes time. So that's why I just want a dedicated radio, dedicated antenna, dedicated mode. And it should work pretty good that way. Now, since we're gonna be a 3A station, we can only have 3 operators at a time. Station A, Station B, and Station C. And we're gonna have a tag, a red tag, white tag, whatever, and whoever has that tag in his hand is the guy that can operate. Nobody else. No, station number 4 cannot go on the air, only 3 at a time. I mean, you can go up to the Paul and say, I want to operate, are you ready to take a break? You can take that tag, and you can go over to a different radio, a different setup completely, and operate the mode that you want to operate. Okay, or just stay where Paul is right there and operate that mode. So we also have, on this sheet of paper here, Paul drew this out, and we haven't talked about it at all, but it's a plan to have other antennas in place, and maybe Paul can talk about that in a little bit. Besides the 2 antennas that I already mentioned over here across the street, we also have, as you very well know, the 2 tri-beams up on the tower. One of them being rotatable and the other one is not. So far we got 4 antennas. Now, any one of these is already included in that?
Let me see. 80. Okay, yeah, you just have the 80-meter dipole in the center, and then a 40-meter dipole off the end, and then 40-meter verticals phased for a cardiac.
How are you doing on that?
Well, there's nothing to do.
Okay,
I think we got all the stuff.
So anyhow, these antennas over here already exist, and so does the 80-meter dipole. We have that in the trailer. I don't believe it's up right now, but that doesn't take long to put up. The other 2 antennas that Paul is proposing is a 40-meter vertical phased array that would be located down below the towers, right?
No, you got the tower in the middle,
Yeah.
and then off the ends.
Okay, all right, that's good. And then the other one would be a 40-meter dipole up where the other house is, the brown house at the top of the hill. That just barely fits in our 300-meter diameter radius. So we do have room, and Paul has done the radiational pattern on these antennas, and it looks like it's going to work. okay? Now, all of this takes bodies. We gotta get these antennas up. We've gotta get the stations manned. So we really have to know eventually, not today, but we do have to know a good month and a half ahead of time, who's gonna show and what are you gonna do? Are you gonna operate? Great. Can you operate fast? Even better. And, you know, are you a physical body that can actually put up antennas? That would be important also. But all these things gotta all be worked out. So getting back to this page, station number 3, okay, would be Paul's Kenwood. Okay, and that would be hooked up to the top beam for 10 or 20 meters, and 15 also, actually. The lower beam would be hooked up to the TS2000 that belongs to the Gardner EOC. Station number 4, I have that down as a IC 7600 that Ken owns, but that's a mistake. Ken is going to loan us his Yaesu. I don't know the numbers of it. I'll have to get those from him. And Dave is going to loan us his radio, his 7300. And then we have the fire department's radio and Kevin's 7300 also. So the quality of radios this year is going to be higher than any other year because of the good base stations that we're going to be using and the 7300. So you can't get a better receiver than 7300. It's right up there. So is the Kenwood TS2000, great receiver, and your base station is fantastic. So, and that's kind of it so far. On the second page I've got written, it's just kind of a breakdown of what the different antennas are going to be doing and who owns the radio, who owns the antenna and so forth, and where it's going to be located and what station it is. But again, we need people in order to carry this out. If we don't have people, obviously, we're going to perhaps drop down the number of antennas we put up, and we'll drop down the number of stations that we have also. So, show of hands, if anybody planning on coming? 1. Kevin? 2. Pete? 3? You don't know? Okay. Alan, you gonna be there?
I'm not sure.
No? Okay.
I've got-
And we'd love to have you come, okay? I know you're new. Between now and field day, I am sure that I will be doing a couple of radio contests or something at my house. And you'd be very welcome to come over. And I usually publish it on the Reflector when I invite people over. And anybody's invited to come. Love to have you. But it's strictly radio, that's all I do. Anybody that wants to do sideband, you get on the radio yourself and start practicing. Okay, that's about it for me. Any questions? I must have covered everything.
You did a great job, Bill. Thank you very much. Again, like Bill said, everything depends on the amount of manpower that you can dedicate to this. So keep in mind, do not pencil this in on your calendar. Repeat, do not pencil it in on your calendar. Ink it in. All right. Any other questions for field day? All right. Item number 2. Bill has made a suggestion, and I think it's a great suggestion. Dave Bramhill, what's her KF4?
GAN,
GAF. KF4 GAF. Donated to the club a Yaesu 757 GX transceiver and a power supply. And we're going to put that in the trailer, use it for field day, or use it for whatever. But Bill's idea was that we use that as the start of a loaner program for new hams or hams that don't have the bucks right away to put up put a station on the air. We'd have a loaner station that they could use until they could buy one. So I think it's a great idea. Come up with a nice application, some rules such as you can keep the station for 90 days, you can re-up for it once, and then it would go off to somebody else. If you re-upped for it and somebody else was looking for it, then you'd only have it for the 90 days. So we'll come up with some sort of application form for new hams, but in particular to get them on the air. So, someone like to make a motion that we do that?
I'd like to make a motion that we do that.
Okay, anyone second?
Second.
Al's got the second. Under the question, any questions? All right, nothing heard, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion is carried, so we will create the program.
All
If
right,
you-
also on the subject, may I speak?
Go ahead.
If anybody has another radio, either a UHF, VHF, or HF, that you want to donate to that particular program, be very welcome, even if it's a handheld.
Yep, absolutely, and that was just what I was gonna mention, thank you for bringing it up. Again, we've got the one radio we've got now, and we'll make it available. There is no automatic tuner in that radio, so the ham will have to come up with a tuner, which is not a real expensive item, especially if you buy it used. And you have to have an antenna, and then we can get the radio over to you, and maybe even a crew to help you put your antenna up. So come up with an application, and we'll have that online here in a couple of days. We'll have that online if anybody wants to apply for it. You need to be a member in good standing, and if two people want the same thing at the same time, the more senior member will get it first. So we'll just work it from there. All right, the next item. I had a visit with John Dould, K1JFK, last week, and in our discussions, we started talking about membership, and those members that are looking to, that they've been members forever and they provide exemplary service to the club. And it was suggested by John that we award Linda Kimmel a lifetime membership. For 2 decades, Linda has served as our treasurer, year after year after year after year. So John had suggested that we offer Linda a lifetime membership. So if you're interested in doing that, can we have a motion to do so?
Can we talk on the subject first, or you have to have a motion?
We have to have a motion on the floor first.
I move we offer Linda Kimmel a lifetime membership.
Second? Is there a second? Okay, we have a second. Under the question. Go ahead, Bill.
Okay, this is gonna sound silly, but it's the absolute truth. Every time we've promoted a person to a lifetime member, we've never seen that damn person again. Ever. Right?
Hmm.
Great gesture.
Yeah, there are some members that physically can't make it here anymore, so, I can't disagree with you. That's not 1,000% true, but yeah. And Linda's already done this for us for 20 years, and I think she deserves it. Anything else under the question? Okay, all those in favor of offering Linda a lifetime membership, say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye. Again.
Was that? Okay, I got one nay, and more yeas than nays, so
I didn't hear it. Who's had the day? Oh, not, I don't.
you
care.
did. You did.
I didn't, I said aye.
Oh, okay, all right, then it is unanimous, the motion passes. All right, thank you very much. All right, and before we get to our guest time, we have a contest to score. Did you all bring your sheets? Can you put that photo up, please?
I lost the second projector.
Oh, no. Where'd it go? Where's the remote? There it is. Can you shut yourself off?
No, I just lost
Oh.
the video.
Find it?
No, it's just not sending.
Well, that's terrible. Oh, well. Okay, I hope you all have your photos. I have, and take your score sheet, and when you, I'm not gonna take them in any particular order, but other than alphabetical, how's that? Well, no, that doesn't even work on this sheet either. I have an IM 1212 digital voltmeter. That would be this device right here. Right, that's a 62 voltmeter for number one. And that device was made by Heathkit and packaged for Bell and Howell schools, which was a big part of Heathkit history. The equivalent of today's online academies were correspondence schools. So you have an IM 1212 digital multimeter. It was produced from 1975 to 1976 and it's sold for $89.95. So on your score sheet there, anything you get correct, just circle it. Right?
I don't see any score sheets.
What's that?
I don't see any score sheets.
That was in your newsletter.
No, I know that.
Okay. All right, so
I
anybody
still don't
scoring
see
at
any.
home?
So why didn't you bring yours?
I've got it down.
Okay.
Excuses.
Oh, no. All right, next item. Right here. An IO 4550 oscilloscope. Produced 1974 to 1980. And was selling for $549.95 at the end. Right, and this is the tough one. There's two items that are really hard to see. The first one,
It really
They're
has.
all hard.
well,
You have no idea how hard they are to see.
if anybody found an IT 3120 FET transistor tester produced in 1977 to 1989 and sold out at $54.95. If you found that, you are an expert. And the next item, very rare, was an IT 7400 digital IC tester. Produced 1976 to 1981 and sold for $79.95. How we getting it back, Kevin?
I do.
Okay. All right, we have a IO 4550, 10 megahertz dual trace triggered sweep scope. And that was produced 1977 to 1980 and sold for $329.95. Next item, a VX1 electronic voice control, produced 1958 to 1960. All right, here's your, oh, there we go. All right, that's the IT 3120 transistor tester, the IC 7400 IC tester, the IO 4510 oscilloscope, the IO 4550 oscilloscope, the VX1 voice relay, a box unit. The next one, an AM2 SWR bridge, produced 57 to 62, sold for $15.95. Then the DX40 transmitter, and that was 1958 to 1960 for $64.95. And I'm going to go down here to this guy here. This is the QF1 Q multiplier, and that was 1956 to 1960 and sold for $9.95. Yep, question?
There's something to say about that.
What's
If
that?
you leave them alone long enough, they do multiply. You start off with one, and then there's won't.
Just don't tell my wife that.
They do multiply, because I had 5 of them at one point.
All right, now, here's the big question. Does anybody know what this is? This is a hunk of Cold War history. Anybody ever hear of Conelrad?
Yes. Yes.
All right, what is that, Al?
Well, it's the emergency thing, if we were under attack, all the AM stations would go either 640 kilohertz or 1240.
1240. Yeah.
And they would jump around.
Yep.
So that if they were using a direction finding for a missile, it would get confused.
Just so the Ruskies didn't send a missile up your butt while you're operating your ham station, right? Your Conelrad alarm would monitor any AM station, so long as it wasn't already on 640 or 1240. And when your station that this thing was hooked to went off the air, it opened up its relay inside and your transmitter went off the air. That way you didn't get a missile up your butt from the Ruskies. So that's Cold War history. And that was 57 to 60 and sold for $13.95. Now, for 1 point for each correct answer, how many got 40 points? 30? 20? 10?
Yeah, I got none.
You got none? Did anybody get any points?
I know the DX40.
Okay. All right. I had one mail-in response from Barry, W1HFN.
Of course.
Naturally. You got 27.
Did he get the transistor tester?
Yes, he did.
He is an expert.
He
He knows his heat kits.
Yeah, he does. He's built, I guess, dozens of them, probably more heat kits than I got, and I got 47. Right? Yeah, you really have to know your stuff to recognize that silhouette and color. And he didn't know if it was the IT 121 or the IT 3120, but he got it. It was the 3120's blue, 2120, which is the same product, it was just beige. Right? So there you go. I hope you all enjoyed that. For your reference, there's a handout there. Chuck Henson. His call sign is WA7ZZE, and he chronicled the entire amateur radio line from start to finish, from day one with the AT1 up through the S90 9000, and it's all chronicled in this book. He also put one out on the test equipment products, right? So that's all that, and he just finished publishing one, if you're an audiophile, on all of the Heathkit audio products as well. So Chuck Penson, WA7ZZE. This is out of print. It's available electronically, however, but if you want a book, theirs are going used on eBay for $99 or thereabouts. This guy's available, I think it's about $25, and it isn't currently in print. So if you're interested in learning more about Heathkits. All right.
And Heathkit is still in business. They're producing kits as we speak.
I just
Not a
bought
lot.
one. I just bought a Heath,
Brand new one?
brand spanking new, at Line Hardware before they shut the doors. It's the doorbell transformer from Heath Zenith. Not that it's a kit, but
besides the clock.
Well, they make
Yeah,
that.
there's a couple things on there, but the clock is one of them.
they got a clock, they got a radio, they got a
Yeah,
couple other
and
items.
according to their website, they are planning on doing other items. They're rolling stuff out slowly. They wanna
Very
see what the-
slow.
They want to see what the demand's going to be apparently.
What?
I don't blame them.
You know who else got into kits? MFJ come out with a real nice antenna tuner now, $119 for a. It's just a kit version of a tuner that they've already got.
That's a good idea. for
You
them.
can
I
build
didn't know
this
I saw it.
in kit form. You know, maybe not this exact model, but essentially this tuner, it comes everything you need to build it, adjust it.
Yeah, and the complicated stuff, the most complicated parts are in there are the switch and the inductor. And they're already wired up. You just put them in and There's only a couple of things to solder to it, but all the capacitors, all the pieces, all the parts, meters. So it's a nice afternoon, literally put it together in the afternoon. What's it, about $30 or $40 less expensive than
I
the
think it's,
built one.
yeah,
So get the same quality, same everything. And I went online because I was very skeptical, but their documentation is pretty darn good. It's not Heathkit, but it's pretty darn good. It'll get you through it real easy. So I'm gonna make a proposal to the folks that do the Boxborough Hamfest to put a talk on Heathkits this summer in September. And I have a new Heathkit sealed in the box from 1970 something. So we'll ask the crowd, do we keep this little piece of history just as it is, or do we open it up? So let's see what happens. All right, that's it for that. If you have a completed score sheet at home that you would like to turn in, send it to me in the email. And in a few days, if I don't get anything else, we'll send Barry his new Ham Shack headset microphone. Ooh, I said I had something nice. So, anyhow, that's it. Any other questions, Bill?
Yeah, one bit of new business. Okay, we approved the loan program, but we don't have a tool. How about if we were to make a motion to buy a 100-watt tool, manual tool, for less than $100, that would go into the loan program, preferably used.
Okay. I'll, would you like to make that in the form of a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that the club buy a antenna tuner, 100 watts. Given Paul the authority to buy it, what may be used, or the new heat kit, if that's cheap enough, to be used towards the loaner program.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, under the question? Okay,
If I can make a comment here?
yes, please.
I might have an MFJ tuner that I'm not using.
Okay,
That would do the trick.
all right, you're
If you'd
looking
like to
for
donate it, we will accept it.
is that just as a loaner, or are you looking to
Whatever you
donate?
want. I'm not using it. I've got an automatic I use now.
So are we talking loaner, or you want to
I
donate
can
it?
donate it.
Okay, all right.
I'll retract the motion.
Okay, thank you, and thank you
Thank you, Alan.
very much, Alan. Appreciate that a
Just
lot.
remind me to come through with it.
We'll remind you. All right. Okay, anything else, anybody? For the good of the organization? And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Todd, AB1GF. Thank you very much. And thank you, go ahead.
well, I don't know everything there is about this, but I do know it's a really good tool. And it all started when I was over Paul's house, working on the triplexer, and also on a separate night working on an oscilloscope. And he had suggested that, you should look into getting a frequency counter and a signal generator and an audio generator. All important pieces of test equipment. So I had it was bothering me for a while, and I dwelled on it, and then I realized, well, wait a minute, I really don't need to go out and buy all that stuff. I have that stuff right here on the bench, which just happens to be the MFJ analyzer. It will do all that except for the audio generator. You have a built-in signal generator, which provides 3 volts peak to peak. And that'll work whatever range. If you have an older model, that doesn't go up to 450, well, it's gonna go up to its highest frequency or lowest frequency. You get one of the newer models like what Paul's got here, and that'll go, well, this one doesn't go extended low, but they have them that go really low in frequency and you can measure there. This is also a grid dip meter. You were to check your coils and wanted to see where they resonated at, you could do that. If you wanted to, I'm gonna back up here. First off, this is what? $279, I think,
something like that.
if you would buy it new. It operates off of 10 AA batteries. Or you could operate it without the batteries, off of a 12-volt wall or a plug-in external battery. It is a bit of a power battery hog, so it will suck down your batteries.
Put mine on a gel cell.
When you first start it up, you get all this. Now, if I wanted to get out of the power saving mode, hold on, it's not. Now it's not going to cooperate. You can disable the power saving mode. Come on. Okay, we'll skip that. This has, I believe, 4 advanced menu items where you can measure by pressing the gate button and holding it down. Well, actually, sorry. The gate and mode together. You can cycle through this. On the main, you can read inductance. It operates as a frequency counter. You got your impedance, your resistance, and your capacitance, or your reactance. Coax loss, so you could take a piece of coax and find out how much loss it has in it. If you wanted to go to another, let's see, okay, you got advanced 1. Does return loss and reflection coefficient, match efficiency, come on. Distance to fault in feet, line length in degrees. Yeah, velocity factor, and it's actually, you can adjust that on here. See, I just messed that up. I'm sorry. Okay, power saving mode is off. You can use this, say you were setting up your station and you put up a new antenna and you wanted to adjust your tuner without having to apply RF and cause all kinds of interference. You can attach this to the transmitter side of your tuner, and you could actually adjust, and I'll attempt to show you that with a piece of coax. Say you take this nice big hunk here. Let's pretend this is hooked up to an antenna. It's actually going to act as an antenna, but let's say it's hooked up to an antenna, and you wanted to preset all your settings on your tuner, so you could just quickly change bands and not have to cause all kinds of problems, get people mad at you. Hey, don't you know about a dummy load? So let's just say that this is hooked up to an antenna. And you wanted to go through and measure all your, mark all your settings on the tuner. You get quite a bit of piece of coax there, so I'm going to move the inductor. First off, it's on coax 1, and then down here is direct, so I want the tune position. And now over here on the analyzer, let's put this at 10 megahertz to 27 megahertz. And I wanted to find the lowest, oh, look at that, 15 meters. And if I adjust it, so instead of sitting there and keying your radio and putting out big heterodons and getting people all angry, you can actually sit here and adjust it to where you want it to be. Oh, look at that. 1.5. So you write that down and then you know where you go. So that's pretty handy. You don't have people all mad at you and threatening to call the FCC and all that. Let's say you got a roll of coax. You picked it up at a ham fest somewhere along the way, I don't know, 10 years ago. Somebody here's got one. You know I got rolls of coax, and say I want to put up an antenna and I don't know how long that feed line is. You can actually measure. You don't have to have it could be an open end. All you gotta do is go into the advanced mode. See if I can do this without messing up. Okay, advanced 1. Then you cycle through it. Advanced 2. Okay, velocity factor. And not what I wanted. Distance to fault. You take the piece of coax that you want to test, you don't know what it is, and you want to see what you have. You take and you put it on desired band, and then you adjust the knob for resonance. And resonance is an X of 0 or pretty darn close to it. So you want to tune and look for that. You got a flashing number up here that says this is the first measurement. So there's actually 2 measurements to do this. You getting down there? Am I gonna get a 0? Since I'm not finding a 0, and I did at home, I'm just going to call it resonant once I find 1. So what you do is, oh, hold on, get up. Come on. Come on. Okay, advanced 2. I want velocity factor. Distance to fall, back here. Okay, I got an X of 0. When you want to register that, so you hit your gate and your mode together. And now it says second. So to do this, to get the final measurement, you go through the same thing, and it doesn't matter which way you turn it, you just go until you reach an X of 0. But you also want to see this meter hit 0 also. So that might reach X of 0, but if the meter doesn't read it, 0. I'm sorry, this was working fine earlier. Distance default. Do this again. Sorry. Distance default.
Now, when you're measuring the distance to the fault, that's gonna tell you this is whether it's open or short,
Both.
either or.
Either or. If you have a short, it's gonna, you'll see it, and you know, if it's open, it'll tell you how long it is when you factor in the velocity factor. But this will also, what I was trying to show, and unfortunately I'm having trouble with it. That says 87 feet, but that's incorrect because I did it wrong. I'm sorry. This will read distance to fault. It'll measure a piece of coax for you. It'll tell you the coax loss.
Why can't you just do distance default?
I'm having
You got,
trouble with the
it's open
buttons.
on the end.
I'm having trouble with the buttons, so I'm having problems. I went through this at home. Okay, there we were at coax loss. Hold on. I don't want that. Distance default. Okay. $10 that's not right either.
And you don't need the velocity factor to compute that?
On the newer ones, if you know the velocity factor, see, let me show you. I'm having problems with these buttons. All right, velocity factor. Let's say you knew what the velocity factor of this is. I'm gonna say it's probably about 0.82
What coax is it?
RG8X. It's not point
85?
85. So right here, where it's flashing velocity factor, If you know it's like 0.85, you can adjust that by hitting the gate button up or the mode button down. So when you get it to where you want it to be, and you lock it in, push both buttons. Then you want to do your distance to fall. There's 0. Come on, oh. 51 feet, but that's not 51 feet. That can't be 51 feet. Let me see here. Okay, coax loss. Let's say you wanted to use this piece of coax and you wanted to know what the loss was going to be at a specific frequency. You can adjust it and put it on whichever band you want. Let's say I wanted to use it for 6 meters. Say about 52 megahertz. It says you got 0.3 dB of loss there. So you'll be able to determine how much loss you have in your feed line, in your antenna system. So that's very handy. You can measure capacitance and inductance. You got a nice little homemade capacitor here that Paul brought in. So what I'd do is I would hook up this jumper with the 2 test leads, and I would measure, I'd be able to measure the capacitance that's there. At 6 meters, you got, if it settles down, (101 picofarads. If I go to a different feed, let's say I wanted to use this on 20 meters. I got 65, 66 picofarads. Take that out, and you put an inductor in, you can measure the inductance. Okay, you go to inductance, same thing, you got 4.873 microhenries at 20 meters. If you wanted to check a tuned circuit or a resonant circuit, you could test it. You could test a series circuit, a series resonant circuit, or a parallel resonant circuit. I'm going to attempt to do a parallel resonant circuit and hope it doesn't give me a hard time. I'm gonna cheat for a moment and make sure I'm doing the right steps here. Right here. Impedance. Coax loss. Resonant mode. You would tune for X of 0 because resonance is not an SWR of 1.1, but it's a reactance of 0. Your X should be close to 0. And that's not always going to give you 1.1 SWR either. But if you look, if you adjust it for your lowest reactance, that's showing 44.7 megahertz right there, but Paul said I should see something lower. You were saying about 14 megahertz?
Mhm.
Yeah, I wasn't seeing that. Not yet. See, that's out of range right there. So 45 megahertz, that's all I'm getting. And of course, these test leads are going to mess up my readings a little bit because they're excessive in length, but it's what I have to work with. Right now, I'm going to try series. And see if there's any difference. Oh, look at that, 14 megahertz. If I do it as a series instead of parallel resonance. But I'm not able to get an X of 0. But it's on or around 14.5 megahertz. So if you were to build your antenna around that, you'd be able to adjust your antenna and get the SWR lower. Kind of like the trap in your vertical or your Yagi, which is tuned for a certain part of the band, and once you add all the other items in, it also functions as a grid dip meter if you have the attachments. These are the little coils that you would normally plug into your grid dip meter. And in the same mode, the tune resonance mode, you see if I can get this to work. Okay, we determined that this was a 14 megahertz, 14.5 megahertz as a series resonance circuit. So and of course you can't see what I'm doing. The meter on here, the impedance meter, when you couple this with your coil or the circuit you want to adjust, you would tune your tune button for an X of 0, just like you did with the parallel or series circuit. And you have different coils. You don't have to take that off because that's a RCA. You can put the different plug-in. Where did you go? There's 3 of them. Okay, this one for larger coils, where you would you would set this on something and you would use this to measure that. And then you have a larger one here. So for VHF, UHF, HF, you'd be able to measure your tuned circuits with these 3 items here. So that's the grid dip part. It's a frequency counter, which is, you would think so because it's got built-in frequency counter. But if you plug in an antenna to this, say a rubber duck or just a piece of wire, and you keyed up your handheld, you'd be able to, when you put it into frequency mode, you gotta get out of this and into main. Okay, main. Coax loss, capacitance, inductance, frequency counter. I think Paul's looking.
Okay.
Put that right there. Let me put this into.
Ready?
Yep.
Let's get out of the way.
146.52. Is that what you're on?
Yep.
All right, look at that. So you got a frequency counter. And also, because this is a signal generator, let's say you had, hold on, 146.52.
Looks like I gotta get in there and adjust the oscillator a little bit.
5.2. Well, it could be.
They're not the stablest oscillators, and not like
It's in the
they had
ballpark.
it's gonna give you an idea where you're
It's
at.
in the ballpark.
Yeah.
Now, let's say I was trying to adjust, trying to align an HW99 that I had. It was a CW only transceiver. And if I remember right, at one point you were supposed to take your signal generator and attach the probes to test point number 3 or whatever it was and tune for 10 megahertz. Well, you could do that with this. Because this has a built-in signal generator, which produces about 3 volts peak to peak. So if you get into your regular mode, okay? And
That's your signal generator.
Right, so if you turn on, you got your handheld there, and I put this on 2 meters. And then I turn this down to 2 meters. You should hear a signal on that handheld as soon as I reach the
Yeah,
approximate frequency.
I'm on 5.2.
You might need to come closer. Oh,
I think you have the antenna connection,
probably, yeah.
MDNC adapter.
Yes, I do. I have a whole bunch of adapters here. Gotta look. Look at that. Not the best signal, but it's picking up a signal right in there. And that's coming from the analyzer. So you've got a built-in signal generator. Which is cool. So, do I need to go out and buy a signal generator or a frequency counter? Probably not. Maybe I need a signal generator, frequency counter that doesn't cover the range this covers, then probably, yeah, I'd want to buy one. But this will cover pretty much everything I want to at the moment. If you were adjusting your dipoles or your antennas and you wanted to make adjustments and didn't want to be sitting there trial and error back and forth, you could hook this up and put it into impedance mode, and you would look around and see where your resonance is or your lowest SWR, and if it's resonant lower than you want it to be, then your antenna's too long, and if it's higher, then it's too short. And with a little bit of adjustment, you can adjust your antenna with this. Got a Ballon. I don't know if this thing's any good. Says it's from DX Engineering. Are they any good?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I would think so. I tend to like DX Engineering. You got a 50 ohm resistor?
I'm making one right now.
Oh, okay.
That's a 4-to-1 Ballon,
2-to-1. No, 1-to-1.
1-to-1 Ballon?
This is a 1-to-1. So I only need
Well,
a 50.
how would you like to test the 4-to-1?
We could do that.
All right, because I got one here.
We'll do them both.
Here's my couple of couplings there.
So let's say you have one of those little antenna insulators that supposedly has the Ballon built into it. You don't know what it is, but you know it's a Ballon. Or you don't know if it's any good. You could check it on here and see if it's any good. So if you had a two-to-one Ballon, you know, one side would be 50 ohms, the other side would be 100 ohms. Or a 4-to-1 Ballon. you know, whatever balance, you could test it. You know, you put a resistor across here, and you'd be able to.
Stand by for a resistor.
I could also do it with adapters with a different resistor here.
Here.
Okay.
So this is a 200 ohm resistor. Just go ahead and tighten them down.
So that should be 4 to 1.
So you don't know what the balun is, so we have a known resistance, a 200 ohm resistor. There we go.
Then if we go back into here into your normal testing mode, impedance RX. Look at that, it's showing a resistance of 206 ohms.
So we know we've got a
1-to-1 balance.
right? Now, if you have a 4-to-1 balun, and sometimes they get burnt out, you don't know what it is, what you'd have to do is.
Hold on, before we do that,
All right.
this is showing 200 ohms. Let's see what kind of, well, it's not gonna work because, let's go back, go to the 4-to-1 for a moment.
You're there, you're there.
I was trying to show the range, what frequency range, and, but it was,
Oh, okay.
what I need to do is I need to put a 50 ohm on here. I'm not gonna do that.
You got one?
Yeah, I got a 50 ohm here, which I would have to do.
So one more clip we can get around someplace.
There we go. I'll manage to do it somehow. With a whole bunch of adapters and a bunch of loss. I need to go PO female to, just need a barrel.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Yeah, right.
And this is probably gonna throw the impedance off just a little bit because of the extra lead lengths. Wrong one, the other
Oh,
generator.
okay. Like this?
Yes,
Okay. So you're looking for a 50 ohm load?
we could do that afterwards,
Okay.
but we don't need to do it with this because I got the only one there.
Okay.
Oh. This is no good at 2 meters. Go all the way down to 160 where they say it bottoms out at. This is not working, is it? Do something wrong. That's not gonna work. No. 50 ohm resistor by itself.
You know, they're all terminators. What are you trying to do?
Put 50 ohms on here. Yeah, you set that variable resistor at 50 ohms. That broke. That's a cheesy connector.
Call my connectors cheesy?
No, mine.
Oh, okay, all right.
This part's good, but this from the other connector I have here is not good. I see 35. Oops, sorry. Oh, what the hell? You only get 38 ohms out of it. Oh,
Lead length.
lead length. Anyhow, what I'm trying to say is if you put a 50 ohm load across here, because it's a 1-to-1, you know it's a 1-to-1, you can sweep the band range to see how good that balun is, where it's usable at. If they're lying, on their specs, just to sell you something, you can determine all that, which is kind of cool. And now I'm all flustered and running out of steam. But basically, you got an RF multimeter in a box. Instead of having 4 or 5 items on your bench, you have one, which you can leave on your bench or take with you. Costs about $260, $270. Maybe you might be able to catch them on sale once in a while. But they're very useful pieces of equipment, and I certainly think they're worth having.
Some caution, don't hook it up to your antenna and leave it there. You get a snowstorm or something coming through,
Static will take
you'll
it out.
generate enough static to blow out that bridge in that unit.
Oh, and also it might be a a frequency counter, but don't attach your radio directly to that. People have done that and actually sent them back to Martin and company to repair them. And they see that all the time. It's not meant to feed RF into it. You can put a small antenna on there and couple it, but don't directly feed RF into it. That's not good. And also, MFJ uses that on their workbenches for everything they do, from the tuners to their amplifiers. They tune the tune section of the amplifiers for the different bands. They do everything with that. So it's pretty good, I think. And I have nothing to do with MFJ. I'm not getting anything out of this. I like it, and I thought it was worth mentioning. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. A question?
Yes,
Somebody had a question.
I'll try to answer. No questions.
If you're looking for a possible problem in your coax, can you do it the real lazy way and just disconnect from your transceiver and measure directly out to your antenna?
Yes, but that's gonna if your antenna's in line, you know, you could have a problem in the feed line or you could have a problem in the antenna. If you want to test the feed line by itself to eliminate any other things, yes. Okay, if we've all done it, we've made our jumpers, put everything on and tested it. Oh my God, I got a short. You know, I use crimp connectors. And the last set of cables I made, I was really careful. I had my multimeter and I put all the connectors in place, and before I crimped it, I made sure there was no shorts. Everything looked good. So I crimped it. Well, damn it, there was a short. Well, which end was shorted? Well, with this, I can determine which end is shorted, because one direction it's going to show a short, the other direction it's going to show an open. So,
Or your distance to fault.
yeah,
Your distance to fault, nothing. Well, it's the end of the coax that's on the tester.
Analyze.
Distance fault is X, then it's
Yeah.
on the other.
Exactly. So that saves a lot of trouble, because what would I do without it? Well, 50-50 chance you lob off an end and you might get the right end, or you don't. So it's handy.
Solder connectors, you got a chance of saving. Crimp connectors, you only get one chance.
There's a few different models also. This is one of the older ones. This one will go from 2 meters, from 170 megahertz all the way down to 1.8 megahertz in there. So it'll do 80 meters to 2 meters. On the newer ones, they go up, this one will go up to 440 megahertz.
It go all the way to 470.
470. And then the one Ken bought,
It'll go up to 512.
no.
No?
He got the one that stops at 220. It doesn't do full 40.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. But they do the same things. This one doesn't have the extra advanced menus that this one has. So this one has 2 extra advanced menus where you can go in there and measure your velocity factor. You can measure your velocity factor and determine it, or if you know what your velocity factor is, then you can adjust it on this one, which you can't on this one. So there's quite a few things you can do with it.
Yeah, it's $270 for the one that goes through 2 meters, and it's $370 for the one that goes through. That's my adapter, sir.
That one's yours?
Yes.
Okay.
And you got another one there for me?
Oh, I got a whole bunch of
You
them.
got a barrel connector?
I have a barrel connector, yes, that is right here.
Thank you.
See, I got 1, 2, I got a bunch of them.
So, guy who was here last month, Mike, new guy, he came over, he inherited a CB and he wanted to get it on his car, so took the MFJ out to adjust his antenna. It worked great. While walking into the house, I had this under my arm, and it made its way to the driveway in a very unceremonious manner.
Still hook up the feed line?
No,
What happened?
I dropped it.
Oh,
And I turned it on, and it wouldn't oscillate. I don't want to send this back. It's $370. So I took it in the house, took it apart, went through it with the magnifiers, looking for broken connections. Looking and looking and looking. I said, well, there's a couple of questionable ones in there. Re-sweated them with the soldering iron, and you know, it still didn't work, but if you twisted the board in just the right way, it came back alive. So I knew it was in there. Thumbblight.
is the board black or green?
It's a great board.
Okay, because they changed their boards, they were all green at one point, and the newer ones all got the black boards.
Yeah.
I don't know how much difference it makes, but I do know if you got the blackboard, it's a
You know, and I looked at it, and the microprocessor in this thing is one of those, PIC 16 micros. And, I'm looking at it and it's socketed. Wait a minute. Socketed ICs, after a period of time, sometimes they get corroded in there, you know, just a little bit of oxidation. So I decided, well, all I'm gonna do is get into a screwdriver, I'm just gonna lift up the two ends just enough, not to take it out of the socket, but just enough to loosen it up a little bit and push it back down. And I got it up a little bit and I'm looking at it, I said, the hell is, did they do that on purpose? And one of the pins coming off the chip was underneath the chip. I said, no, that couldn't be. No. So I pulled the micro out, straightened out the pin as best I could, put it back in, and it came alive. So since this thing was new, that pin was just barely making connection with that socket. And all it took was that tip to loosen it up and make it funny. So,
No,
MFJ quality.
well, that's what I was just gonna say, people say that all the time. And, yeah, they do get some bad stuff once in a while. But most of the stuff they put out is actually pretty good.
And where else are you gonna go to find USA-made products? Every one of them made in this country. Try to say that about anything these days.
I have said that, for example, the antennas, he's bought up High Gain, Cushcraft,
Hustler.
He's bought them all up. So those are all MFJ products, and sometimes I have openly said that he's cheapened them up a bit. And they're not like the old Cushcraft, but, you know, it's American made. I think he could do better on some things, but he stands by his products. It used to be a 1-year warranty, anything goes. Now they got a 2-year warranty.
All right,
He's willing to, unless it's something that was bought in kit form, you know, he'll stand by it for 2 years.
there you go. All right, Tom, thank you very much for, the demo and lessons.
Sorry I got so flustered.
That's all right, it happens.
No.
And thanks everybody for coming tonight. Motion to adjourn.
Make a
Second.
motion to adjourn.
All right, and Al's got a second, and we're good to go. Thank you very much. Good night.